They look at Israel and it's so successful and so powerful. Ancient anti-Semitism is based also on a lot of envy, the bad kind of envy, not the envy of emulation. If it's somebody like Elon Musk, who's a brilliant guy, and they see all these, you say, I like to be like Elon Musk, he's doing so well. But if it was a Jewish guy, it says, how do you get that? Who does he know? What's the deal? What's under the table? So that's part of it, a lot of it, the anti-Semitism. And that's kind of scary because historically, once it starts, it's kind of like a virus. It infects a lot of people, and they feel that it's a code.
Yeah.
It's a way to be accepted, and that's what's scary right now if you're on campus. I know all those people pretty well, and I was very surprised and saddened because I didn't understand the theory of, Candace is a different story, or Fuentes, but Tucker and Steve Bannon and Megan and all that group, they agree with 85% of it. If you ask them, do you want the border closed? Yes. Would you ask them, are you suspicious of biological males and women? Yes. Are you happy that we're trying to, you know, lower the crime rate in Washington and we've deterred it and it's the lowest crime rate really in 40 years? And yes. Are you happy that we are deregulating? We had a tax cut. Yes. I can't find any major point of difference other than now they're very critical of Trump's uncouth ways, but that hasn't changed in 9 years. But now they're remarking on it, except this one issue, and that is, I guess, Israel and the Iran war. And I don't understand that at all because if you look at people who have harmed the interests of the United States the last 50 years and who was responsible for 9/11 and Fort Hood and San Bernardino and the Boston Marathon, I could go on. It's not Israel. And
Right.
I had an interchange with Piers Morgan. I asked him when he and his other ally on his show said that Israel was not a consensual society. It wasn't a democracy. And this man was speaking from the UAE. And I said, if you really believe that, I'll have a wager for you. Go into Israel and say that you want to put a Christian on your podcast and then say you don't like the Netanyahu government and you'll probably be okay. Do the same thing and put a Muslim on who said, I don't like Islam anymore. I'm converting to Christianity. And by the way, the royal family, whether the Kuwaiti, the Saudi, I don't like and I want to overthrow the government or something. And you'll be in jail for the rest of your life if you survive. And then Piers interjected and said, well, I broadcast all over the Middle East. I'm treated very well. I said, you're treated very well because you're a celebrity and you mouth what they want to hear. But why don't you put on Muslim apostates that want to convert or fierce critics of the royal family in which country you're broadcasting? And I don't think you'll be invited back if you even survive. And so I don't understand. That seems very logical to say that. And yet they keep saying these things, and I don't understand it. Other than, just to finish, I think a lot of what's going on is there's been a rapid change in demographics in the United States. The Jewish community is secularized, it's integrated. There's a lot fewer observant Jews or even people who identify with Israel. It used to be 6 million. I would imagine there's only 2 or 3 million observant Jews who really feel strongly about Israel, or even non-observant that feel strong about Israel. There's about 5 million Muslims who are in enclaves in Michigan and New Jersey and elsewhere, and they feel very strongly about Gaza. Israel's no longer a small power that has been attacked by everybody. It's the technological, economic powerhouse of the Middle East with its scanty 11 million people. And if it fights a war, it's going to win a war. So they feel it's an overdog. And I think a lot of people on the right also feel that they wanted to come in out of the cold, so to speak. When you support Trump or you support Israel, you get so much criticism that they find crevices or apertures where they can go in and then be championed by the left. It's amazing when, Tucker says he wants Graham Plattner, he wants to interview him. Or if you look at some of the guests that go on, they have a lot of left-wing guests. They bring in Fuentes and stuff. And I suppose the left likes that. And so, they can be kind of statesman-like. I have friends on the right, I have friends on the left, but it's very bizarre that you would refute everything that you tried to advocate that other people agree with you, and then you would reject all of that over one issue.
To be dead honest with you, I think huge checks have been written. That's what I think. I think for a 180 of this nature so quickly in so many different areas, I think huge, gigantic checks have been written. And that's
I
what I think.
I think
Eh,
there's
but
evidence that Erdogan in particular, that Turkish foundations in front have for years channeled money from the Gulf into
yeah,
influencers. And I
yeah,
and $50 billion has gone from the Gulf the last 40 years into Middle East programs. So I know that is very influential. When I was a graduate student, the Middle East departments were one guy was an expert in Israel, one guy was an expert in Arab. That was it. No endowed chairs. It wasn't 15 professors all that weren't really professors. They were all pro-Palestinian activists. And that's what it is. And it's in the general education curriculum. So that the money from the Gulf has had enormous influence. Immigration has had enormous influence. And the idea that Israel is very powerful and very successful. Anybody who goes to Israel and say walks the streets of Haifa, then flies back to San Francisco would be amazed that that city grew out of nothing. It was a provincial city for hundreds of years, but I mean, it's safe, it's clean, it works, it's beautiful. And so it's a very confident, ascendant country, and that bothers a lot of people in the United States. They magnify the influence of Israel. Oh, look at Israel. Now it's
yeah,
a
every
country of
issue.
11 million people that's trying to survive, every single day. Rafsanjani reportedly, and I think it was an accurate report, said that Israel was a one-bomb state. And he went on and said it was kind of good that Israel had half the Jews in the world in one place because they were easy to liquidate. I can't tell you how many people. I live on a farm and in a very small town, and anybody that I knew was Jewish till I went to UC Santa Cruz, kind of a wild campus in 1971. And I have people who write me, well, you Jews and your Jewish friends, or why don't you just come out and tell you? And I'm thinking Hanson, S-O-N, Scandinavian name or whatever. But you know what I mean? They all have to find some motive to explain why it's just obvious. I mean, John Fetterman, of all people, he can see it. Israel is the only
Yeah,
democratic consensual society. Like all societies, it makes mistakes, but it's self-corrective, it's self-critical. It has a multi-party system. It has a judiciary, executive, legislative branch. It guarantees rights. 2 million Arabs live there. They have mosque everywhere. The correspondent antithesis anywhere in the Middle East. If you were 2 million Christians in Saudi, you would be in a camp if you tried to open a church. So they all know that. But I think a lot of it is envy too. They look at Israel and it's so successful and so powerful. And a lot of it, ancient anti-Semitism is based also on a lot of envy, the bad kind of envy, not the envy of emulation. If it's somebody,
as I
who's,
understand.
like Elon Musk, who's a brilliant guy, and they see all these, you say, I like to be like Elon Musk. He's doing so well. But if it was a Jewish guy, it says, how do you get that? Who does he know? What's the deal? Under the table? So that's part of it, a lot of it, the anti-Semitism. And that's kind of scary because historically, once it starts, it's kind of like a virus, it infects a lot of people and they feel that it's a code.
Yeah.
It's a way to be accepted. And that's what's scary right now if you're on campus. I don't know how many parents I've talked to that are not sending their kids that got into Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Stanford, and they're sending them to Texas A&M or places in the South. Isn't that a commentary
Yeah.
where the Ku Klux Klan was, that now the
Oh,
South
yeah,
would be
Miami
considered more.
University. Oh, yeah.
Yes, and that's a
Yes.
commentary on the bankruptcy of the coastal elite in New England and Northern California, where you would better send your child to the old South, the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan, because that region has evolved more tolerantly and progressively than the left, which is now kind of flipped, and it's more like the anti-Semitic Klan than the South is.
Yes,
It
and
is.
fascistic if you don't agree with them, if you don't see it the way they see it, if you're not as far left as they are, there's an eventual purge.
It's just like everybody says, occupied land, Israel. Well, they never mention Turkey has been occupying northern Cyprus since 1973. They don't mention that Kazakhstan has ethnically cleansed 150,000 Armenians almost the same day as October 7th. They never mention any of the other stuff. They just focus on Israel, and that's a sign of a anti-Semite. It is that there's all these things going on in the world, but it's only 12 million people that are the cause of this, and that's the tip-off. And
It's so funny you say that. I've picked up on that. And when there are legitimate criticisms of Netanyahu and Israel with regard to, how they may have oppressed Palestinians or killed a huge amount of innocent civilians, I'm like, I can hear all of this, but why are you not applying those exact same criticisms to Hamas or Iran?
yeah.
What about, the Uyghur community being slaughtered by the Chinese government? Or how about what's going on in South Sudan? Like, look at Israel blew the ceasefire attacking Hezbollah. I'm like, but Hezbollah started it, right? And they're actively killing civilians. Where's
How
your
about
outrage there?
How about our two biggest, most renowned leftist immigrants hate Israel? They're anti-Semitic as well. Mondami, he came from, using his own vocabulary, you could say Mr. Mondami and his family were settler colonialists. They went into Uganda, a 99% black
Right.
country, and the Indian community was a settler colonial community. It owned 65% of the wealth, and he's always talking about going into whiter neighborhoods for justice. And then he comes over here, and his parents are very wealthy. He was very wealthy, but somebody who was a Ugandan said, well, you people came in and you took over my country, and you weren't born here. You're not black. And Ilhan Omar's family was very well connected with Saeed Berry. He was the genocidal dictator of Somali who is responsible for liquidating over 200,000 people that broke away. And we never really were told how many of the people who came in the 80s and early 90s into Minnesota were Saeed Berry bureaucrats and apparatchiks, but I think you could make the argument the vast majority were. So we never tell Ian Omar, what did your dad do as a colonel in the army of Saeed Berry who waged a genocidal
Right.
operation? And who are all these people who came here as refugees when Saeed Berry was kicked out, and they were afraid that the people that they had slaughtered would have, retribution upon them? Are you people dictatorial? Are you genocidal? Nobody ever says that. And so,
No. And they
you
claimed
know,
he was a teacher, her father. Like,
yeah,
no,
just
no, he
says, oh,
wasn't actually a teacher.
yeah, he wasn't actually a teacher, or if he was a teacher temporarily, he was teaching people things that Saeed Berry wanted to be taught. But so it's always it's kind of like a philosophy, or it's an ideology that we're encountering right now. The hatred of Israel, hatred of Jews, and it's not empirically based, but it's kind of a club that it resonates. And I knew people like, I didn't know them, but I'd met Candace and people. I could see why she would go that way, and Fuentes is unhinged. But I didn't think that Tucker and Megan would go that way. I didn't.
I'm heartbroken about Megan
I was
Kelly.
on it. Yeah, I was
I'm
on a
not gonna
show
lie.
for about six. Yeah, but anyway, maybe they'll find their way back.
Nope. No
I
shot,
doubt.
boss.
That's it. That's a
There's
bad
no
joke.
shot.
No, there's
No,
nothing
I
in it.
know.
No.
But this is why voices like yours are so, so precious. And we've lost Charlie Kirk. And Dennis Prager has been seriously injured. And Jordan Peterson has had debilitating health issues. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
God, we need these people. We need
I
these
know.
voices. And this
Yeah.
is why you're such a treasure. I am so grateful to you for all you do, for giving me this time.